Testing the microphone. Test, test. Uh, Mike. Sorry. I'm gonna start over. Some people spend their whole lives trying to create the conditions they believe will make themselves happy. They work for more money, greater security, better health, meaningful relationships, and the respect of others. And sometimes they get many of those things and still don't feel that their life is good. So tonight I want to ask a very simple question. What is the key to living a good life? Not just surviving or getting through the day, but really living a good life. Most of us, when we ask this question, we tend to think about the conditions of our lives. We think about things like money, shelter, health, relationships, meaningful work, and whether we feel loved. We look at the conditions around us and ask, is this what I need to be happy? These concerns matter. If you don't have food, shelter, safety, healthcare, or basic stability, that suffering is real. Those needs have to be addressed directly. And intellectual explanations aren't a substitute for practical help. A hungry person needs food before they need teaching. A person without shelter needs a place to rest, not an explanation of emptiness. If someone's sick, exhausted, afraid, or overwhelmed, practice begins by recognizing what is happening and responding to what is actually needed. Yet, even when many of these needs are met, people still suffer. A person can have a comfortable home, steady work, enough food, and people who love them, and still feel lost. So we have to examine this more closely. If your basic needs are met, is that automatically a good life? Most of us know that the answer is no. The right conditions can support a good life, but they don't guarantee one. Even the conditions we believe will make life good can become sources of suffering. Comfort can quickly shift into dissatisfaction when we begin to expect what we have or take it for granted. Success can bring pressure to hold on to what you've gained. Even the way we love can become possessive when we expect people to meet our needs or remain the way we want them to be. This brings us to a deeper question. If meeting our basic needs is not enough, what makes a life feel clear, meaningful, connected, and whole? Before we dive into this, let's sit with this question for a while we meditate together. Sit comfortably with your back and neck straight. Relax your shoulders. Let your hands rest in the mudra position, right hand, left hand, touching thumbs, centered in your lap. Relax your face and your jaw, and make sure your teeth aren't touching. Begin breathing a little bit slower and deeper than usual. Let your breath settle into a slow and steady rhythm. Close your eyes and bring your attention to the center of your chest. Feel your heart. As you inhale, gather the scattered energy from your heart, gather the energy from your head, and bring it into your heart. As you exhale, let go of what you don't need and relax your body. Continue breathing slow, deep, and steady. Now, ask yourself, what is the key to living a good life? Don't try to answer too quickly. Just ask, what is the key? Notice what appears. Your thoughts may offer an answer. Maybe money, love, health, peace, purpose, freedom. It may also have no answer at all. What would it feel like to have everything you need? Whatever appears, just imagine how it would feel. Then return to slow and deep breathing and bring that energy into your heart. and ask again, what is the key? Try not to fixate on any particular answer. Just sit with the question. Notice all of the ways your thoughts answer this question. Do you notice any common threads? Now let's shift the focus of our meditation by bringing in a mantra of love and compassion. Kwansam Bosal. Kwansam Bosal is the bodhisattva of love and compassion. She hears the suffering of the world and helps those who call out her name. Repeat her name silently in your mind. As you repeat the mantra, open your heart to love and compassion. Kwansam Bosal, Kwansam Bosal. Now repeat the mantra silently in your mind for a few minutes. When you're ready, you can open your eyes again. At the beginning of this talk, I asked you, what is the key to living a good life? When we look closely at this question, we begin to see that the conditions of our lives are only part of the answer. Two people can be in very similar situations, yet one feels overwhelmed and dissatisfied, and the other feels steady and connected. The difference isn't only what's happening around them, but in what they notice and how they respond. We can see this in our own lives. There are moments when something small goes wrong, and our thoughts build a large story around it, turning a minor event into something much heavier just by adding judgment, fear, or imagined consequences that aren't actually present. There are also moments of kindness or appreciation that we barely notice. A friend checking in on us, or someone taking the time to thank us. They fail to register as meaningful because our thoughts are fixated on what's missing rather than what's actually here. It's very important to be able to notice what is actually happening in our lives. This means being present enough to experience what's in front of us, instead of being pulled away by our thoughts about the past or the future. We also have to be able to receive what's already being given. When people offer their time, attention, or care, we have to let it register instead of overlooking or dismissing it as not enough. Otherwise, we can continue to feel that something is missing, even while others are reaching out to us. What we feel also has to show in how we respond. For a feeling of love or care to be received or understood, it has to take form through words or actions that fit the situation. When we live this way, the quality of our lives begins to change. We realize that our experience of life depends on more than what we have. It also depends on whether we can receive the care that reaches us and express the care that we feel through clear words and actions. This is one aspect of how love takes form in our lives. But we have to be careful with the word love. For many people, love means personal love, which is usually associated with romance or the feelings we have towards our friends and family. It can also be conflated with affection, approval, attachment, or a sense of closeness. These can be aspects of the way we experience love, but it isn't all that love is. When I use the word love, I'm pointing beyond those personal feelings and attachments. The pull we feel as love draws us to make connections. Through those connections, we distinguish and structure relationships between people, ideas, emotions, and experiences. As we structure and restructure those connections and relationships, they create the conditions for something new to take shape. Things like friendships, families, communities, works of art, or even new technology. This is why I use the word love to point to something more fundamental: the energy of creation. By energy, I don't mean physical energy in the usual scientific sense. I mean a potential that becomes realized as boundaries, conditions, and relationships as they're distinguished and experienced as particular forms. Before these distinctions are made, that potential remains unrealized. When one form is distinguished from another, relationships become possible. And through relationships, new forms can take shape. Everything we experienced as a distinct form, including our bodies, takes shape through this process. In human life, we feel this pull to connect and create, and we call it love. We experience it through the boundaries of our body, heart, mind, relationships, and life. Love itself is unbounded, but the way we express it is not. Whenever we express the love we feel, it must take form in the actual conditions of our lives. Our bodies also shape how love can be expressed through us. Our words, thoughts, and relationships give that expression context and direction. When love takes form, it becomes part of a web of conditions and consequences. The way we choose to express it affects both our own lives and the lives of others. Love is timeless, but its expression can occur only in the present moment, not in the past or some abstract imagined future. This distinction matters because the love we feel in our heart may feel unconditional and unbounded, but we can only express it through the limited time, energy, and capacity we have. Because the love we feel has no limits, we may think our giving should also have no limits. We may believe that we can give endlessly, avoid creating boundaries, and never say no. But that's not true wisdom. The heart may channel unbounded love, but the body can't perform unbounded action. You live through one body, limited by time, energy, and the particular conditions of your life. That doesn't limit love, but it means love has to be expressed through the actual conditions of your life. That's where wisdom is needed. Wisdom helps love take form in a way that fits the situation. That's why I make a distinction also between love and compassion. The personal love we feel for someone can be mixed with attachment, expectation, desire, and our opinions about who they are and what they should do. Compassion is the feeling of love that isn't being distorted by our opinions and desires. Compassionate action is when that feeling takes form in a way that reduces suffering. Love by itself may be unconditional, but compassion always happens within the context of relationships and conditions. A real situation includes the person in front of you, the need being expressed, your own capacity, the timing, the likely consequences, and the limits of what you can know. What is compassionate isn't always obvious, because we often project our own feelings onto situations we observe. Compassion can take many different forms. With hunger, compassion may be food. With grief, it may be silence and presence. With harmful behavior, compassion might require a truthful word, a firm boundary, or a refusal to participate in the same pattern. Compassion depends on the context of the situation. It isn't one fixed behavior. It's love being expressed through the conditions of the moment in a way that reduces suffering. This is one of the hardest things to learn because it requires clear discernment in every moment. Sometimes it's easier to leave love as a feeling. Then we can imagine ourselves to be kind, compassionate, or spiritual. But the world tests us, and our action reveals what's in our heart. Disappointment, exhaustion, ingratitude, conflict, and resentment can reveal what's actually motivating us. In these moments, we can see whether our actions are coming from love or from fear, guilt, pride, habit, or the desire to be seen as good. This is where Zen practice becomes important. Our practice helps us discern the difference between action we take from clarity and action we take while caught up in our own thinking. Sitting meditation helps us stop feeding the momentum of our thoughts, return directly to the experience of what's happening, and restore clarity. Moving meditation carries that clarity into action by training us to focus completely on what we're doing. As we practice what we're doing with our complete attention, ordinary activities become a way to maintain clarity. From the outside, the action might look the same. You may still be washing a dish, answering a message, helping someone, saying yes or saying no. But inside, that experience is different. If our mind is entangled in thoughts, our reactions can be misguided. There may be tension, resentment, expectation, or hurry. Even a simple task can feel like a huge obstacle. When the mind is clear, the task no longer carries the weight of all those thoughts. You can give your attention to what's in front of you and respond more clearly. And if something else is needed, rest, a boundary, help, or a difficult conversation, that also becomes easier too. This is why ordinary action is such an important place to practice. Moving meditation can begin with something ordinary, like washing the dishes. Often the struggle begins before the task itself. You finish eating, you carry a plate to the sink, and before the water's even running, a commentary starts going. Why do I always have to do this? No one appreciates how much I already do. I have more important things to do than waste my time on this. Maybe you have been doing more than your share, and a conversation needs to happen. Zen practice doesn't ask you to swallow this resentment and call it compassion. But don't let the story decide the next action. Return to what's actually happening. There's a dish in front of you. The water's running. Just wash the dish. The task is simple. Your thoughts are making it feel heavier. When you give the task your complete attention, you stop feeding those thoughts. You need to wash the dish either way. After it's done, you can focus on what to do next. If a conversation still needs to happen, you can have it more clearly. If a boundary is needed, you can set it with less resentment. When you stop expecting life to become something else, ordinary life becomes practice. Doing dishes doesn't suddenly become profound. The chores themselves don't change. What changes is how you meet them. Instead of treating the task as an interruption, you give yourself completely to the life you're already living. Don't wait for the day when your job is perfect, your relationships are easy, your body feels great, and nothing's going wrong. To be honest, that day is not likely to come, not all at once. The key to a good life is not constant happiness. It's not getting everything you want. The key is recognizing the presence of love, even in the middle of ordinary moments, and being clear enough to recognize it, receive it, and let it move through what you do. This doesn't mean every interaction will feel loving. People will still be difficult. Work will still be tiring. Your body will still have limits. Relationships will still require honesty, patience, and boundaries. But you begin to recognize how much of your life is made possible through connections and relationships. The care you receive, the food you eat, the places you live, and the opportunities you've been given all depend on people and conditions beyond yourself. You didn't grow everything you eat or create the sunlight, water, and the earth that sustains it. Your life was made possible by countless people, relationships, and conditions that came before you. When the mind closes through defensiveness, fear, resentment, or a fixation on what's missing, all of this can become invisible. When your mind is clear of these distortions, the same life begins to feel different. You recognize the importance of all these conditions. Then you can receive kindness when it comes. You can say thank you and mean it. You can offer care without expecting anything in return. You can accept help without withdrawing because of shame or pride. You can say no when it's necessary, before helping turns into resentment, before giving becomes an obligation, and your own needs go unaddressed. When you're no longer acting from pressure, fear, or the need to prove yourself, your actions begin to come from a different place. You give because you genuinely want to give. You rest because you recognize your limits. You receive without feeling like you owe something in return. There's less tension and exhaustion in your relationships because you spend less energy worrying about how you're seen or what you think you should do. You begin to feel love through the recognition that your life is supported by countless people, conditions, and relationships. This is why gratitude matters. It helps us constantly recognize and receive what's being given to us. When someone helps you and you say thank you, it's not just good manners. You let the help register. You acknowledge that someone gave time, effort, care, or attention, and you allow that to matter. This changes your own heart as much as it changes the relationship. Gratitude is not limited to thanking other people. We also have to notice and acknowledge the countless conditions that sustain our lives every day. If you don't acknowledge what you receive from people and the conditions that sustain your life, you can feel unloved while love is already reaching you. Giving also requires this kind of honesty. If you help someone and they don't say thank you, notice what happens inside. Maybe something needs to be said, or the relationship is out of balance, or perhaps you are expecting recognition. Seeing this clearly helps understand whether you gave freely or an expectation was quietly shaping your actions. This is why gratitude and clarity belong together. Gratitude helps us receive what's given. Clarity helps us give without turning help into a transaction. Even when we learn to give and receive with clarity, we still may expect something dramatic or extraordinary to happen to prove that our life is meaningful. People often wait for spiritual fulfillment to come through a special experience, a vision, a breakthrough, a feeling of bliss, a moment where the whole universe opens. These experiences may happen, but they're often short-lived, so you shouldn't wait for them. Zen points you to something more direct and sustainable. Complete engagement with what's happening in every moment. This is something you can begin now, even if things are difficult. You may still need money, housing, healing, support, a different job, to repair your relationships, or help rebuilding parts of your life. Work on those things. Zen doesn't ask you to sit idly. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Begin practicing now with the life you have. No matter what the material conditions of your life are, a scattered mind makes practical steps harder. If you put off making a call, leave bills unopened, or keep putting off a conversation that needs to happen, then your energy can be entangled by dread, blame, resentment, or fear. Without clarity, it's easy to get caught in an emotional cycle, repeating the same story until the next step becomes impossible to see. When the mind feels scattered or overwhelmed, take a few slow, deep breaths to settle your body and interrupt the momentum of your thoughts. The breath gives you a way to reset in the moment. Sitting meditation gathers your attention around a clear focal point and restores clarity. When sitting and moving meditation become part of your daily routine, they give you a reliable way to restore clarity each day. From that clarity, you can return to your attention to what's actually here and focus on one action at a time. Sometimes the compassionate action is rest. Sometimes it's cleaning one part of the room, sending a message, having an honest conversation, asking for help, or setting a clear boundary. Sometimes the first step is just making a list of what needs to be done. A good life doesn't begin by ignoring your conditions or working tirelessly until everything is perfect. It begins when you meet the life you're actually living with clarity. If someone needs help, you can help them. When someone helps you, say thank you. When you're tired, rest. When saying no is necessary, say no. When you feel yourself shut down after a harsh comment, a long day, or a moment of stress, notice what caused it and use your discernment to determine what needs to be done. This is how you practice compassion towards yourself. A good life is not waiting somewhere else. It begins here, in the life you already have. Love is the boundless potential that we feel in our heart that draws us into connection and gives meaning to our lives. Your life gives it shape. Clarity helps us see what is actually happening. Compassion is what love feels like in relation to another person when it isn't distorted by ego, opinion, or desire. Wisdom helps us choose how to respond in ways that reduce suffering. Not everything will happen in a way that feels like it's loving. Even as you meet the challenges life presents, despite all the difficulties you must face and limitations of your life, you'll begin to realize that love is always present. The key to a good life is recognizing love in every moment and letting it take form in everything you do. When you realize this, there's nothing left to unlock. I wish you 10,000 ways of good luck. So, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. If you have them from YouTube, just drop them in the live chat. Daniel said, "Thank you very much for this Dharma talk. I was feeling overwhelmed and angry and was feeding it through blasting my heavy metal. This calmed me down and brought clarity and resonance." Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate the comment here. I'm glad to hear it helped, too. I was saying to the... Any questions from here? The chat's a little behind us, so... You look like you've got one.
Yeah, there's something that you said.
If anyone else has a question, feel free. I expected more questions after a talk like that. Even saying no.
And I'm just reflecting on how hard it is to receive love. For some reason, I feel like it's even harder to give love, actual love.
Yeah, the comment here, so people can hear it online if they're watching, is that there's a reflection that it's harder to receive love than to give love for them. And yeah, I think everybody has different challenges in different ways. I think a lot of it also just depends on, you know, your experiences in life. Why, yeah, some people it's much easier to give. Some people it's like they have a really difficult time receiving a compliment or help. I think I tend to be a little bit that way sometimes too. But I think maybe for someone who has that position of feeling like it's harder to receive it, maybe just start by reflecting on how much you're already receiving with without anything, just having a place to sit down and rest at night, and all the things that came together to make that possible. You can get cosmic if you want, like having the perfect conditions to make life possible on Earth, and the sun to keep us warm, and a warm jacket in the winter. All the work that goes into bringing those things, to you, that the little things we take for granted. I think just recognizing the web of people helping and doing things for other people, and all of the things that had to come together to make that possible.
So you're saying having higher awareness of love of recognizing.
I think it could help, that having a higher awareness just of everything that actually came together to make this moment possible.
I feel like people just see things the same.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just get caught up in like what just happened, or
Conditions or past.
yeah, and a lot of the focus tends to be, especially with people who are suffering, is the attention is on, and I mean unnecessary suffering. If you don't have a place to live and food, there's a certain amount of suffering that no amount of reflection is going to fix. You have to then just focus on what you're doing and how to get yourself to a better position. But when you are having unnecessary suffering, and a lot of times it's from the added weight of the thoughts you're putting on it, the things you see as missing. And it's not that you can't recognize those things and they could be real, but also it needs to be balanced with the recognition of all of the things you're taking for granted, probably, in those situations. And by recognizing that, it kind of gives you a more balanced view of what your life is in every moment. So you're not thinking it's just like, it's all bad, I'm missing all of these things, I don't have the shoes I want, I don't have like a cool jacket or whatever. It's just like you take more account of what you actually do have. And then I think when a lot of times, if you do that, you recognize the things you don't have are small compared to what you do have. And granted, I'm if you're in a really bad position, like in the middle of a war or something, you could take all of this and throw it out the window. You just have to worry about your safety, right? And finding a way out of a really horrible situation. But in that sense, you're probably not thinking about anything else other than that. So, yeah. So. Yeah, someone else is, Ashita is saying it's that way too. Trying to be aware in the moment. I'm having a hard time receiving a compliment. Makes it a little bit easier to receive it instead of dismissing it. Yeah, I think I don't expect you'll leave here and everything, you're gonna fix every detail of what I said. I just wanted to bring it back to your awareness. And I think if you lean into that and really try to raise your awareness of those things, in my experience, it makes a big difference. It's like I've told the story about how I had a stroke before, when I basically lost everything, including my ability to move. I still felt that way. Yeah, I was missing a lot of things. There's a lot of things I wanted to fix. And I didn't have a lot of people coming to visit me, telling me they love me, but I still felt like, honestly, I felt very fortunate to be alive and have doctors taking care of me and nurses coming to help me, like, get food in my mouth, And sometimes, and then all of the other things I had concerns in my life before that seemed super insignificant. I was just really glad there was someone who decided to become a doctor and decided to become a nurse and figure out how to fix the things that were wrong with me. Question?
Maybe our comment maybe is gonna answer the question. But I feel like something that's reconciled me with my culture being Moroccan. So Moroccan, like very much in each other's lives, and it used to annoy me a lot that all of my aunties would like give me their opinion on what I should do in my life. Like they know everything about me, and I'll be like, oh, it's so frustrating. But I feel like, and then I was frustrated with the whole culture because there are everybody's like that. But I feel like something that reconciled me with that is now the ability to see that that's love. That's love, that's they love me, they care for me so much that they want to help me. But then there is ignorance on their side in the sense that like they're just not they just want to do it. They love you and they care for you so much, but they don't know. And then they don't have the awareness that they don't know. And like they don't have any other need, like that's their life. They don't have any other need. That's where they are at that moment. They don't have the means or the reflection or the awareness necessary to actually help them. But still the intent, like I can now really feel the love for people. And my whole experience with the whole culture shifted. Because things that would really, I would take really personal, like how dare you think like this, how dare you think your opinion, who are you? I'll be like, wow, you really love me. Like wow, you always love me so much that they actually, because they could also ignore me.
Yeah, they cannot hear it all.
Yeah, but wow, they love me. So now I can see their love, but also their ignorance, and like just feel like they are wherever they are. I don't know if I can help them, like show them, like think that's not the way they live. I feel like when I met them, when I can now that I can receive their love, I feel like they feel that I'm receiving their love in the whole relationship. Where before I would just be like, don't get into it, like, and I think that was hurtful.
Yeah.
But now I'm just accepting it, but also not like it doesn't mean that I'm gonna accept it, but also putting boundaries. Still like it's significant. So there's no question, but I just want to share.
Yeah.
Unlike love and ignorance, how it can be toxic and like having boundaries is kind of like important, but still being able to receive the love and have boundaries.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know how much people online were able to hear that comment, but the comment was about kind of the cultural expression of love in Nadia's culture, where she felt a lot of resentment for the types of comments she was getting, telling her what's best for her, things like that, and being able to separate that underlying all the things that she didn't appreciate, there was actually love and good intention, and being able to separate that some of it was coming from a place of ignorance and an unawareness, being unaware of what they didn't know and all of the factors they weren't aware of, and why that would possibly cause resentment amongst you, and being able to see the difference between, what is underlying the comment and then how it's being distorted through their own lenses, through their own opinions, through their own desires. These are the things I was kind of talking about very generally, but you gave a very good example of that. Yeah, and I think you can all of these are two-sided relationships. There's always critiques you could probably make on both sides, but you only have control over one side. So you chose to see it as love and ignore the parts you thought were ignorant, and it shifted your relationship with these people. And I think that's a really great insight, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's gets to the heart of what I was trying to say, is when you can separate these things and realize when all of these other things are at play, the fear, resentment, expectations, what you think somebody else should do, when you start to separate those out, you don't have to accept the parts that are coming out of fear or resentment or jealousy or just ignorance about your situation. You get and you can if you need to, you can set a boundary, but also you can, if you see it as coming from a place of love, it makes it much easier to set a boundary that everybody understands and will respect and doesn't cause harm back to them by saying, oh, like, I don't care what you think, even though you might not, but you might say, I appreciate you're trying to help, but I don't, I don't think that's the right thing for me to do at that time. The best, and then that's where I was saying, like, this is where Zen is really helpful, because it helps you clear your mind, and when those feelings come up in yourself, just the awareness is like, oh, I feel really upset about that. I'm going to take a few deep breaths and relax before I respond. Or maybe I'll just give it a day before I respond, because I need to go get away and meditate and do some moving meditation, or give it some space so I can respond correctly. That may be just a way of showing yourself compassion, so you don't just engage with what they said and make the situation less pleasant for yourself. So you just give yourself space, give it time to settle, allow yourself to parse out all of the different parts of what happened, and then come up with a more appropriate response. And I think that, to me, is, like I was saying, Zen doesn't make all of these conversations magically better. It just gives you tools to navigate, and as you practice them and as you incorporate them into your life, it becomes more and more natural when you feel those things not to respond right away, to take a deep breath, to take a mental step back, and not feel like you have to meet them, head on and have a confrontation.
I have a question about that. Sometimes you're in that moment. I've been in situations where, like, I have that, like, fiery, spicy response, but it's effective and it sets the boundary.
Mm.
And if I didn't do that, then that person would just walk all over me. So,
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving a lot of kind of general examples, but the response was that someone has a fiery, spicy streak here, and that when they use that, it sets a boundary that people respect, and they don't walk over you. I think it's finding the appropriate response at the right time. I think if that's just a conditioned response that maybe if you have only one tool, I might say, like, if that's your only tool, maybe it's not appropriate for every situation. But certainly, like, it's not always just take a step back. Sometimes it is saying, hold on a second, that's not okay. And there's I think it's conversationally a little bit harder, but, like, like, if someone is, like, physically assaulting you or something, like, then you almost absolutely have to do something more than just take a step back. You have to assert yourself in some way to stop what's happening. And, I don't know. It's really hard to give general responses. Would I say every time having a fire response is the correct action? Probably not. But is it sometimes appropriate? Sure. And sometimes you do it and you think it's a mistake too. I've been there but that's when you have to kind of just reconcile that with yourself too, and then reconcile it with the people affected. If you don't think it was the appropriate response, there's things you can say, like apologizing, or but yeah, sometimes in the moment sometimes people won't let you withdraw, right? So they won't allow you to take a step back, and you might have to tell them, give me space, right? So I don't want to say there's one rule, but I think the important thing is like the clarity is like not just letting it happen out of anger, or it's like, is this, the more clear you are, the more you confident you can say like, oh, this is the response. You know, this is why I think, this is a little bit tangential, but why I think these kind of like spiritual and Zen practices are very important for accompanying martial arts practices, because if you're going to be learning how to deploy techniques that can hurt people, you want to have discernment that this is the right time to do it. You have these tools, you can be very good at them, and you can make people do things that, you know, physically, but do you always want to deploy that? No, I think it's good to have a very strong discretion about when these types of things are appropriate. And then when you do, like if someone's being assaulted and you have to step in and use something like this, like, then you don't have to burden your own conscience about like, was this right or wrong? You're not going out there starting a fight because you want to prove yourself to somebody. You're seeing a situation that calls for it, and you know, then, you know, I always think it's a last resort, but if you don't have this kind of clarity about yourself, about your ego, about your emotions, it's really hard to have the kind of discernment. And then, you know, the more you can deploy that can harm people, the more, I think the more responsibility you have to have your own clarity about who you are and what you're doing. So, yeah. Well, so the observation was that sometimes when there is love being given and love being received in certain relationships, that the spicy interactions increase. And I think yes, but I think I would kind of harken back to the part where I was saying, like, a lot of times in interpersonal love, we start to wrap up things like possession, expectations, our own desires about the way we want things to be. It starts to get wrapped up in what in the word we're calling love. And what I'm saying is that the clarity helps you kind of parse those things out. Like, what is the actual love part? What's actually resentment, desire, possessiveness, jealousy, whatever it may be. Like, there's all of these different emotions that come into the word that we use as love. And what I'm saying is that love doesn't actually include any of those things. Those are kind of piggybacked onto the word and carry, and think about the way we use love. We use it to mean all of these different forms of emotion, which includes everything you say. And what I was just trying to say is recognizing when all of those things are at play, and then I use the word compassion to say when it's not compassion is when the love is not being distorted by those things, by the fear, the resentment, the desire, the ego. And then the feeling is, when it's absent of that extra baggage, the feeling is, how do I reduce the suffering? How do I make connection? How do I increase the bond?
Like, I was just reflecting on that experience, but when it comes to people you're not as much a connection with, like a stranger
Yep.
out in public that maybe you have a negative interaction with, would that clarity kind of be considering that they're responding from their experience of the situation and not taking it as
I'm not. I think I kind of get it, but like you're saying with a stranger and you have a negative interaction, and what was the question though? Like in regard to, I'm trying to put it together with like the love, or it doesn't necessarily have to. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I guess so. I was trying to put that together, like how you see that experience develop when it's not someone you have that connection with.
Yeah, so maybe it's like a really distant connection, someone you just have an interaction on the street. It's still a connection, it's still a form of relationship, right? But then it is a very negative interaction, maybe with some very little seeming cause, right? And I would say it seems like, in those kind of interactions, like if someone's just like rude to you on the street, or seems like they're picking a fight or something like that, yeah, I think that they're coming in. I think on your end, like you can't control how they are, right? But like I think it's important to recognize like they're coming in with their own baggage. Maybe someone just punched them in the face. You never know what just happened before, and they were overwhelmed, and now you're the next person they saw. Or either way, I think it's like the interaction is being very much overwhelmed and tainted by ignorance, and the fact that if someone just got punched in the face and now they're taking it out on you, there's a lot of ignorance about why you would deserve that kind of treatment in those situations. And I try to, when I have a negative interaction like that, or a very common one is someone leaving a rude comment on social media or one of my videos or something like that, and I just try to recognize like they're coming into it with a lot of baggage, and most of the time it has nothing to do with anything I've said or done. If I am rude or I say something really unthoughtful on my video, I try to acknowledge that too. That's a possibility that maybe I wasn't aware of in the moment, but generally, so you can take responsibility for your part. I don't think you have to take full responsibility. It's always 50-50. Like every interaction has some like sort of, you have your half and they have their half, but just trying to have clarity about where that could possibly come from. And I think one of the things that helps me feel compassionate to people who are just rude for no reason or inconsiderate, or people with a lot of power who are doing messed up things to the world, like and in some way we're connected, but I feel like the best thing, my best explanation is it's done out of ignorance. It's done with a lack of awareness for how they're infecting everyone around them. They're not conscious of all of these connections, that we all are deeply interconnected. And if you recognize that, you wouldn't be doing that, because you're harming other people who are connected to you, and it all affects your entire environment, even if it's from a distance. And it often causes all of this, even if it's not from me personally, it will cause them resentment from all kinds of other people. And if you wanted to live a peaceful life in harmony with the world, you just wouldn't be doing that. The only reason you would do that is out of ignorance. And I mean, a lot of stuff can be done out of ignorance, can be incredibly harmful. So like, I think it's important to to address those things and call, like, you know, at least acknowledge what's going on and work to reduce ignorance and educate people and tell them about the importance of like uh, being a loving person, a kind person, and you know, in a certain way, that's what I see my goal is to do is, you know, we have a lot of people telling us about all the things you do to be successful and how to make money and have a nice house and do all these things, but then like how you do get all these things and it still ends up with, you know, not having a good life or not liking the life you're living. And to me, what I was talking about tonight is trying to inform people and educate them about what is probably missing in most of these cases.
Sometimes also the rights actually is just to shrug our shoulders and like sort of like shrug our shoulders.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to that's gonna come, but it's really hard to do. And like personal example, yesterday I wasn't feeling super great. I was feeling like not great at all. And then I was like wondering why is everybody want to start a fight with me today like that yesterday? Why is everybody like hooked to me because I'm like already not feeling great and everybody wants to start a fight with me? And today I'm reading the text messages and everything where like all the people wanted to start a fight with me. And I'm realizing that I'm the one who actually wanted to start a fight with me. That like my mood was like so bad that I didn't even realize yesterday that I was short. And then I'm like, why is everyone fighting? So like taking responsibility. But it is like it's hard, right? Sometimes you're just not in the right like hormonally, not in the right like kind of chemical system to even like see things. Yeah.
But then, you know, maybe like I would say, you know, one of the things is, yeah, sometimes you don't know what's going on. Sometimes you don't have clarity. Sometimes something's wrong physically and you think you're fine, but you're doing things that, you know, are causing all these issues and you're blaming it on other people, right? So that does happens to everybody. But like the more clarity you have, the quicker you can recognize it. And some people just go through their lives and do that all the time and never recognize it. You're saying when you felt better the next day, you could recognize it. And sometimes it does take time. It takes rest. That's why I always also advocate meditating every day and doing moving meditation every day. Because if you are in one of those loops and not recognizing it, it helps you reset. And then when you come out of it, you're like, you see all of the things that just happened in a totally different light. And that's happened to me many times. And I think it's an incredibly powerful tool, not just to use like in the moment when things are happening, but as like a daily reset and a way to reset your own clarity and then not kind of like continue on those patterns. Like you could have had conversations from yesterday where you were kind of starting things and then they carry into today. And if you don't have that awareness, you might just carry on and ruin all of your relationships over the course of the next few days. But the fact that you were able to rest, you're able to reset yourself, and then you can see like the faults of what you did, then you are so much less likely to make it worse, and then you also have an opportunity to make it better. So, all right. Well, I think we're gonna end it here, unless anybody has any urgent questions. I do have a few things to announce. We are going to be having a slightly different schedule next month, so check the calendar. We're going to have I'm going to be traveling a little bit, so we'll have one Dharma talk, no guided meditation, and it'll be on the second Thursday of the month. So after that, the schedule will go back to normal. I'll send out an email, and it's on the calendar, and you can check that all at mindlightway.org. If you'd like to join us and join our community, we have an Inner Circle membership in Zen Inquiry discussion groups that meet a couple times a month. You can also find out about that on our website. And one other special announcement is this Saturday, July 18th, we'll be having a wellness workshop at Wu's Martial Arts in Arlington with a lot of breathing, movement, meditation practices. I'm probably missing some things, but that's also on our website. And you can find this also on our meetup page. And a few of the instructors and community members will be teaching there, including myself. So come join us if you're available. Do you know what time that starts? It starts at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And other than that, our programming only exists because you choose to support it, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, so there's information on how to donate in the description on our YouTube channel. And if you're here at the back of the table, and your generosity is truly appreciated, and I really appreciate all the great questions and all of you joining us and being a part of our community. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week, or next month, I mean. Take care. Bye-bye.